So hello YouTubes. Today we are doing a set of presentations on speaker positioning. So students from Moscow Music School, Andrei Maximov and Dmitry Volkov, are going to be presenting on some stuff, and then I will also add my comments in the end. So
Yep.
Go for it, bro.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we see your screen, and yeah, thanks for doing this.
Okay, let's start. So, first of all, what factors is important before you choose any monitors, and what you have to take in consideration, it is like, first of all, you have to choose the size of your monitors. So, if we're talking about near-field monitors, I guess you should choose like five diameter monitors, so it's not like too big for your room, because more than five diameter woofer will be like affect your room in a bad way, I guess.
Yeah.
And I forgot to mention that I haven't did like a very deep research. This presentation. It is only about my experience and what I know. Like, it was super only my experience.
Yeah, I hope that when it's my turn, I'll show you some things that I learned that are really cool, that I didn't know, that are crazy. I learned a lot in this research.
Okay, good. So yeah. Also, you have to before you choose the size of your monitors, you have to make sure that you can place your monitors in your room, that your room is not like uneven. You have to make decent. You have to calculate decent distance between everything and between like those monitors. Can you see my mouse?
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So yeah, you have to make sure that you can place it in a good way, in a decent way, and let's move further. So, how can you choose a monitor? Like, what are factors that you have to consider before buying? As I said earlier, it is diameter of speakers. So you have to choose no more than 5 diameter woofers, so it will sound good at your room. Also, you have to check in a manual or in Google about your amplitude frequency characteristics of speakers, or simply frequency response. So it should be even as possible, like on this screenshot I made. So if this curve is even, that it means that this speaker will produce good sound, because there is no boosted and cutted frequency, so your sound will be clear. And in future, you have to measure some monitors have a microphone that you can connect to your monitor, or you can download the software that will calculate your amplitude frequency characteristics in your room, according to your room. So it should count your reflections, so you can clearly detect your frequency response. How speakers works and some types of speakers. So usually every speaker has tweeter, this small thing that is generate high frequencies. Woofer that generate like mid and low frequencies, and some of speakers has second woofer for mid frequencies, but not every speaker has it. Also, some of the speakers has phase inverters. What is phase inverter? Phase inverter, it is pink. It's not a secret that speaker generates sound not only in front, it also generates sound in back. So phase inverters are made for invert the phase that goes from the back of the speaker, so it goes from back to front in reversed phase, so there is no cancellation, phase cancellation, and so it affects on sound in a good way, obviously. And as I said, room really affect on the frequency response, and you have to really think about your room. About stand for monitors, like in some cases it can affect your sound really well, but in some cases it can fuck up your it can fuck up your frequency response.
Like they say scientifically, they can fuck up your frequency response.
Yes. Sorry to be so straight.
That's the same like when I give lectures. It's normal.
So yeah, like it depends actually. Like at my place, the stand in room one it affects badly, and in second room that is kind of smaller than room first, it affects good. So you have to like really listen to your room, to your speakers, if this is bad for your sound or good. So next one. So this is a kind of deep talk about monitor position in a room. So first of all, you have to calculate the equal side triangle between two speakers and you. Like, so it should be equal from woofer to your ear, from right woofer to your ear, from your ear to left woofer, and between two woofers should be equal sides, equal triangle side. And when I first calculated this triangle, I made this wrong because I pointed the speakers into my ears, so it was kind of like that. And then I just realized that this triangle should be from your head. So this triangle starts from your head and goes to the speakers. It's just my experience.
Yeah.
Also, you have to consider the height of your speakers. This is why stems can affect your sound in a good way. But you can actually, if you don't have stems, you can just adjust the angle of your speakers. For example, this is the bottom of your speaker, and if it stands like below your ears, you can kind of make an angle that points into your ear. For example, this is your head, and this is your speaker, and you have to point it like that, so it goes straight to your ear. And the third important factor is space between the walls. So it should be enough, because if it's really close to the wall, it generates unpleasant reflections, and sound don't have space like to travel free. I don't know, and you have to consider your speakers like at least 20 centimeters, I guess, between behind wall and between side walls. So it shouldn't, your speakers shouldn't touch the walls, because it's kind of bad for the sound. Next slide is about stereo and mono monitoring. So let's start from the stereo. Stereo monitoring can be used for controlling and focusing stereo image, which is widths, so you can control the width of the track. Second is stereo effects. You can control the stereo effects such as reverb, delays. Delays, I mean like ping pong delays, echo delays, and that goes from left to right your ear. That travels from one side to other side. So you have to control this in stereo. Also, panning and hard panning, you can control it in stereo. And yeah, this is really important in stereo. And mono, in mono monitoring, you can balance balance instruments in your mix. So according to my experience in mono, in mono it is easily to detect antiphase things and frequency. When, for example, if two instruments conflict with each other in mono, for me personally, it is easier to fix it in mono. And in mono, I usually control the gain of the instrument. So for me personally, it's really easy
to make balance, right? Yeah, to make balance.
Yeah, to make balance in a mix. Also in mono, it is easy to focus at the low end. So I usually balance my kick and bass in my mixes in mono, but sometimes in my mixes my bass is layered with the mono and stereo sounds, and mono monitoring also helps me to adjust the gain levels of this kind of layered bass. And yeah, like position of instruments, I mean, for example, if you pan things in a mix and listen to mono, like panned instruments just became quieter, like quiet, and this may help to create you balance and frequency control. So mono is kind of like very useful, as I can say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what about acoustic treatments? There's like three main concepts of acoustic treatments of your room. The first one is absorption. It is when sound is absorbed by kind of these panels. It can, the form of it can vary, and these panels absorb your sound, so unpleasant reflections don't go to your ear. The second concept is diffusing. It is these uneven things that diffuse your sound, and it don't absorb, but it diffuse your sound, so it goes pleasant as well. And third concept is bass traps. Bass has effect in a room that it buzz in angles of the room, and because because low frequencies, like in an angle, it goes really fast from one side to other, and it creates a buzz that really unpleasant to your ear. So if you have 3 of these concepts in your room, it means that your room can sound really, really pleasant. So when you can say that your monitoring is good? First of all, you don't have in your room echo resonance. It's when you clap and there is no reflection that goes like a ring, like ping, ping, ping. It happens because of parallel rooms. If you have like parallel rooms, this echo resonance can appear. So as I said, if your room don't have a bass pass, it is about bass traps. You have to check your room and monitors with a microphone that detects the amplitude frequency characteristics, and if everything is clear and
I thought it was like flat as fuck, you know.
Yeah.
And then and I see there, I don't know why,
Yeah,
flat as fuck and cool.
Actually, yes. If your room flat as fuck, it is good.
Yeah.
For you, yeah. It is good when you have a really nice calculated position of your monitors in your room, and it fits in your room. And the last thing, you have to check your reference track and really focus on sound of this reference track, and you have to take notes what does sound good or bad, and maybe this is if everything sounds good, that means you done everything well. That's it. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Andrei.
This is my presentation.
Thanks, Andriuха. Спасибо.
If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Great. Let's go to the next one, to Dima. I do have a lot of things to say. The presentation I built will have a lot of stuff that I think is interesting, but let's take Dima's first.
Yeah, okay.
And then I'll go to my comments.
Wait a second. Yeah, this one.
Cool.
I just realized that you used this image before, but okay.
No, I have never used it.
Fits
No,
well.
I have never used it. I know every image I have. I have joke about Let Us Turnip the beat. Yeah.
Maybe it was joke. Yeah.
No, but I have not used this image. Great, that's amazing.
So, if you do not live in a crop field, the main factors that will affect your near-field monitoring experience and ability to deliver good listening condition for your mixing will be not actually only the speakers, but your listening environment. So, what factors should be taken in place when choosing your speakers? Modern speakers is a complex system that takes a huge amount of engineering effort and also consists of specific sound-proven mechanical and electronic components that in a capitalistic world costs money. So the first factor we will consider in the size of the bag of shiny jingling coins that you have. So the world of speakers comparison is enormously huge part of the internet, which you don't want to dive into unless you're sexually attracted to this beautiful sound in boxes.
Exactly, it's so true.
Or have multiple degrees in sound and electronic physics. But you will, and this will be painful. So to cut down on your suffering, I will declare that the speaker's variety of quality has a paywall. Just find one of the industry standards of your level, check the cost, and then pleasure yourself in unforgettable research. So anyway, let's consider the main types of studio monitors that you can find at the nearest music store. Speaker in a nutshell is a box with 2 or more stretched oscillating membranes. To oscillate these membranes, we need some sort of power. And now we introduce such concepts as active and passive monitors. So a passive monitor requires an external amplifier to amplify the input signal before entering the monitor. This amplified signal is then sent through a series of electronic components within monitor called the crossover network. The crossover network essentially acts as a filter separating the input signal into two multiple signals based on frequency. But we will talk about this a bit later. An active monitor does not require external amplification, as amplifiers are housed within the cabinet. The input signal entering the monitor passes through the crossover network first, after which each band is separately amplified before being sent to the relevant drivers or membranes. Drivers, it's how it's called scientifically.
Yep, that's correct. And use that word a lot. It's really cool, the drivers. Yeah.
In home studio settings, active speakers are much more convenient. It won't be necessary to purchase an external amplifier or worry about calibrating the crossover network. This will help when space and budget are factors in designing your home studio. Also, you may notice that some studio monitors have holes in the cabinet. These are called ports. Monitors with these holes are called ported monitors, while those without are called unported. When a driver is vibrating, the backward movement will create internal air pressure within the cabinet. The ports redirect the pressure outside the cabinet. The structure of the ports causes air to resonate close to the monitor cutoff frequency. This resonance helps to extend the frequency response of the monitor, allowing for more low frequencies to be played than a similar closed monitor. The choice between ported and unported speakers depends mostly on the shape of the room. The drop in accuracy for ported speakers can be more noticeable when the ports are located on the back of the cabinet. This is compounded when the monitors are placed close to a wall, as signal exiting the port will reflect off the wall and introduce new resonances.
We will talk a lot about this when it's my turn to speak. This is amazing that you mention it. Andrei, pay a lot of attention to this part of the ported speakers.
Yeah. In a small home studio, there is a good chance you'll have to place the monitors near the wall, so this can be a problem. In the description of the speakers models, you also may find the type or configuration. Most often you can see the designation of 2- or 3-way speakers. These terms mean how many frequency bands the original signal received from the amplifier is divided into. Therefore, often the number of speakers bands can be also determined by the number of speakers on its front panel. However, nuances are possible here, since sometimes several speakers can be used to reproduce the low frequency range in acoustics. Two-way acoustics can be a good choice if your budget is limited. A 3-way speaker designed with all the nuances in mind will cost significantly more, even if you choose from the same model range. In 3-way acoustics, a third speaker appears designed to reproduce medium frequencies, such as specialized radiator improves the sound of the speaker in the most audible range for a human. Of course, if the speaker is designed correctly. So, frequency response. What is this? The frequency response of a system is a quantitative measure of magnitude and phase of the output as a function of input frequency. In our particular case, as a system, we understand all conditions that may affect the difference between what you're trying to hear and you actually hear. As we know, sound is a physical phenomenon, a vibration that propagates as an acoustic wave. Those waves diffuse, refract, and reflect off any physical object that gets in its way. The frequency response forms of these diffusions, refractions, and reflections. Also, the reverberation time, which characterizes the rate of sound decay, is considered to be the most important acoustic parameter for various kinds of rooms. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, that's so important.
How it looks in specialized software. What is actually reverberation time? In an enclosed space, sound source stops emitting energy and it takes some time for the sound to become inaudible. This prolongation of the sound in the room caused by continued multiply reflections is called reverberation. This prolongation can be perceived by you as too much of some specific frequency in your mix. That's why it's important as much as frequency response. There is also a factor that should not be forgotten: frequency response of your speakers. As we said, the speakers is a complex electronic system which also has this parameter. If we operate with some good level industry speakers, this parameter will not affect your sound clarity as much as room, but should be considered too. Speaker stands. Speaker stands are stands on which loudspeakers are placed with the aim of improving quality of sound from the speaker. In the 70s, musicians and high-fidelity enthusiasts found that lifting speakers off the ground and monitoring them on something with no vibration increased sound quality. No way. Ordinary domestic furniture was not built with properties that would deaden vibrations and so enhance the speaker sound. Speaker stands, therefore, were proposed built to remove any... how I wrote this? Deleterious collaborations.
I guess
it was passed from some topic.
Sure. I guess it's deleterious
colorations.
Yeah, deleterious coloration, something like that.
That came about through unwanted vibration. Further research has shown that speakers are best positioned so that the tweeter is one of the drivers. So that tweeter is level with the ear or the listener, and so speaker stands are often built so that line up with the speakers with the ear of a person when sitting down. So the main point of the speaker stand is to stand and stand still. My thoughts about it should stand still. You can choose any of that you like which perform this function. As we discussed above, the factors which should be taken into consideration with positioning of your speakers are frequency response and reverberation time. Thanks to technology, now we can measure these characteristics to properly place speakers. Two things that you need to perform such an operation are measurement mic and special software. For example, for mic it will be Sonar Sound ID reference measurement microphone and Room EQ Wizard as a software, or an acoustician that will do it for you. The main point is to arrange the speakers in the room so that the frequency response in the listening point is as flat as possible. If it's not possible to do this solely by rearrangement or result is not satisfactory enough, most likely the room needs acoustic treatment. This is how frequency response looks like in specialist software too. In many professional studios, you will find a single speaker located between the left and right near-field monitors. This is used for monitoring the mix in mono.
It's so good photo, man.
Yeah. Many professional mix engineers monitor quietly in mono for two main reasons. It is much easier to judge the relative levels of equalization of instruments, voices, and effects when they are superimposed on top of each other rather than when they spread between your speakers. Monitoring quietly in mono quietly reduce the likelihood of ear fatigue, obscuring your judgment. It's a big problem for me.
You monitor very loud?
From the experience.
You monitor very loud?
Monitor by ear fatigue. So, yeah, because I'm mostly, I don't know why is it just now, but I think I will figure it out.
Yeah, it happens to me as well.
So, dealing with acoustic reflections and tackling room resonances. Acoustic reflections and subsequently room resonances can be measured in the same way as frequency response. Unlike the last one, it will definitely require some acoustic treatment. Such a treatment can be achieved by rearrangement of furniture in the room or by using special acoustic treatment materials and structures. I will not deep dive into this topic because like it's
Yeah.
not the main point of the question, but Andrei already said about the special materials and structures. And also acoustic reflections, and this is, as I understand it, same as reverberation time, because reverberation time is characteristic of acoustic reflections, how many time they need to become inaudible. So is a moment when you can say my monitoring good enough. Each mix has an imprint of room in which it was made, and this is normal, even for like big production studios, very expensive and all this stuff. This imprint forms of your listening conditions during mixing. There is no such thing as perfect pure sound. If this print is euphony and satisfies all the needs of you as the owner of the room and your clients, then everything is fine.
Yay.
That's all.
Hooray, man. That's amazing. Thanks a lot. That's really great. That's really great. Really good work. I already graded you, by the way, both, like while we were doing this, so I don't have to do it later, and it's all great. Thank you so much. I love this format, man. I think it's good to keep you guys a bit connected, especially that we're a bit online. So maybe we will repeat this thing a bit later. So if you can unshare the screen, Bratan.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'm going to now go through the work I did, and I guess I will skip some things as I progress because you already mentioned it. Do you know what that photo is?
No.
So there is a band called that existed in the 60s, 70s, 80s. Actually, they are still kind of alive, I think. The Grateful Dead is called the band. And are they still? No, they really are not available. Are not from 1995 anymore. The Grateful Dead made a tour which was called Wall of Sound. So they were kind of like, I mean, of course, with the lack of knowledge that was back then in that time, they were trying to make like the most epic sound system in the world. And so this is kind of how it looked like. So you can imagine the poor sound engineers that were making this setup, you know, and how, I guess, like tricky and bad it was in all the senses of the sound engineering acoustics sense. But anyways,
just imagine how it was transported.
Yeah, I don't want to imagine that. I don't want to be that tech man. Like, definitely you don't want to be that tech. So okay. I didn't brought this to white. So I wanted to identify important considerations to take when we choose speakers. I wanted to talk about perforated speakers very much. I wanted to describe waterfall diagrams. That's some diagrams that Dima showed. I think they're super useful, and I wanted to explain them. And I wanted to experiment with speaker positions, but you guys are not here, so I guess we're gonna skip that. But in here, I'm gonna give to you some audio files that you can use to calibrate your speakers. That it will help you to calibrate your speakers. So it's really cool. So initially, what I want to say is like, okay, let's just define some terminology. So there are the mains or the far fields, which are the huge speakers on the back. Then there are the near fields, or the speakers that are closer to the engineer. And then something that we call the alt pair, or the alternative near field. So usually there is near fields and far fields. So like when you choose equipment, you need to do this, like, you know, it's kind of like the lens that you will be viewing the world to. So making this choice is really important. Your monitor needs to be like, I mean, to offer you very good detail in general, and it should have a really good frequency response, obviously. I like what it says here is like furniture rattling volume levels aren't tremendously important for mixing purposes. What it means is that mixing loud is kind of like not so important, or like a consideration that it's the main thing that you should take into account when you buy monitors. And the mains, like, this is something that many engineers say, and it's taken from the book of Mike Senior. Like the main monitors are mostly to show to clients, like, oh my god, wow, like, so clients get hyped. And for example, Nigel Godrich, which you may know, it's a very famous engineer, he says, like, I don't use the big monitors in studios for anything because they don't really relate to anything. Most high-profile engineers mostly used small speakers. And actually, I was the other day. I was actually, when I'm running the sound engineering course as well, like as a program leader, and I was adding the photo for the Telegram channel for this, and I chose the Joe Barresi studio. And look at this, you see? No far fields, like only 3 near fields. 3 set of near fields. Like Tool records were mixed here. All Tool records were mixed in the studio. And there are no far fields. Yeah. Andriuha.
Do your monitors in DTH are big?
No, these are near fields. I mean, when we're talking about the far fields, we're talking about this gigantic one in DTH. We have a pair of barefoots and that's all. And we have the terrible thing that we don't have alternative speakers for a while now. We used to have them, but we don't have them for a long time. We have never bought it. Huh?
What about MS? You have one mono sheet control speaker.
Yeah, we have a mono sheet control speaker. Yeah, but
You
it's not
mean like just different, but
alternative
not
pair. Yeah,
alternative
it's
tools.
super important. It's super important, and it's something that I always criticize about our studio, and we should have it. And we should improve that. But yeah, I mean that's everybody has limitations, and the limitation is money. So be skeptical of hi-fi equipment. I mean, I'm talking about things that are not designed for the studio because they are designed to make things crispy and awesome regardless of the sound that it's coming to them. So also there is a problem when you, and Dima mentioned this, when you buy speakers with built-in amplification. These are active speakers, and that's really cool because they're more convenient and compact, and you don't have to guess in the matching between the amplifier and the speaker, because when you buy a passive speaker, you can really fuck it up when you buy the wrong amplifier for it. So they're also heavier, which increase the amount of inertia. Inertia is like the counter force of something. So the speaker starts vibrating. If the speaker is heavier, it's gonna have more inertia and it's gonna move less in its own position. So basically, it is recommended if you're gonna choose a studio speakers to kind of go for active speakers unless you really know what you're doing. And also, well, they have, because the amplifier is matched to the speaker, maybe they are better than passive speakers. They are definitely better. Imagine if you buy a great passive speaker with the wrong amplifier, it's better to have a cheaper active speaker because it has its own amplifier that is really good already for it. That's a really important factor. And so obviously no speakers are really neutral. Like everybody has their own preferences, and the matter of taste really comes in. So it's bullshit to say that this is a flat speaker or something like that. Okay, so Dima mentioned ported speakers or speakers with holes, which is really important. You see, like the Barefoot Micro Mains are not ported speakers, for example. They don't have a hole anywhere. And this case, the Fostex PM2, they have like a couple of holes. And it's very common that this happens because, because as Dima said, the hole in the cabinet produces like a low frequency boost, and so generates kind of like a little bit of an illusion of a low frequency growth. But this creates a lot of problem, and I'm going to explain you why, and that's really important. And actually, the author of Mixing Secrets for the Mall Studio, Mike Senior, he's really against ported speakers, and actually he convinced me to. Like, I mean, I don't have speakers at the moment, so it doesn't matter to me. But when I will make the investment in the future for this, the less money you have, the more you should be afraid of ported monitors, he's saying, and you will see now why. Such speakers are sometimes referred to as bass reflex or reflex loaded, and they incorporate some kind of hole in the back. And this encourages, you know what this word means? Encourages? Like, for example, if I want you to study, I would be, for example,
like force?
Yeah, it's force, but it's a bit more like a nice way of forcing somebody. Like, for example, I wanted to encourage you to study, so I made you make this presentation.
It's motivate.
It's motivate. And in the context of a speaker, it's kind of like you want the whole to work in resonance or on sympathy with the speaker drivers. So you see, you open a hole in the speaker that kind of like is trying to help the box resonate in sympathy with the speaker drivers. And the main purpose is to increase the low frequency. but this is restricted based on the size of the woofer, actually. So you can only get so far with opening a hole into the speaker. And like Dima said, there is a problem that when you block artificially that hole, for example, that you put the speakers on the back of the room, which is typical in a small recording studio, you're gonna end up kind of like artificially boosting the artificially cutting the artificially boosted frequency response, and that's really important, and you will see why. Let's read 1 second what it says there. The solid line in this graph shows the usual frequency response. The dotted line, like, I mean, this is the frequency response of the actual speaker with a hole on the back. The dotted line shows what happens when you put the speaker close to the wall. So you end up losing like 3 decibels under 100 hertz, kind of, for every decibel that every hertz that you're moving lower down the spectrum. And so you know what's going to end up happening. Well, let's read it. You will see. So the speaker overall frequency response is boosted on perforation. However, the relationship of the components below 50 hertz are not natural because they're artificially created by the hole. Before I carry on, by the way, I want to say I'm going to leave the topic so I don't get you confused. I'm going to leave the topic of if you put your speakers closer to the wall, the artificially created low resonance is going to go away, you know. So I'm moving away from that topic. We already said that. One of the problems of ported speakers is that if you put it close to a wall, you're going to lose that frequency boost that they are unnaturally creating. Now, there are more problems with ported speakers. Yeah?
I want to say, I'm not really agree with this artificial, unnatural sound, because the speaker is the technology that artificially creates the sound. What's the difference between creating with a driver or with a like port?
Look. I mean, I don't have the knowledge to articulate that as well to you, but based on what I read and the research that I did to build this presentation, like a good ported speaker ends up being more expensive than a bad ported speaker. Like to get that thing to work right, it's a bit challenging. You see?
It's harder to.
Yeah. So I mean, you're right in correcting me in using the word artificial, because in the end, the whole speaker, it's an artificial system.
Yeah.
So, but and then I guess what I'm going to try to go there and to correct my words is that when you make a hole in the speaker to boost the low end, you're kind of cheating. It's something kind of like, yeah, I took amphetamines and then I was able to work all night. And it's like, okay, I mean, at what cost? You know, it's like, I mean, you fucked your health, and also, did you make good work? But no, because you were all fucked up in amphetamines or something like that. So, so it's kind of like I would say a cheating way of, or let's say it's a cheap way of getting your speaker to produce a bit of more low end, but it comes with a lot of problems. And if you spend £1,000, this is what our author is saying in the research that I made. Like, if you spend £1,000 in a ported speaker and £1,000 in a non-ported speaker, you better go for the non-ported speaker.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of the combination. And look at this. This is really interesting. Like, because the resonance is happening on the escape of air through the hole, everything above 50 hertz is kind of like well balanced. But everything below 50 hertz is actually kind of like happening as a result of the perforation, and is really not well tuned to the whole speaker and what it ends up happening. So you sort of have like a really nice relationships of frequencies above 50 hertz, but under 50 hertz, things don't move in consonance with whatever is happening in the rest of the frequency response. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Andriuka, what you want to say?
Do you think that ported monitors create some delay in low end?
Well, it's great reflection that you just said. Great reflection and a great thought, and we're gonna discuss it in a minute. By the way, speaking of great thoughts, I want to share with you something that my son did yesterday, man. It's so super out of topic, but I was absolutely mind blown.
His first active monitor.
Yeah. Man, it was crazy what he did yesterday. Like, of course, I'm a what's the name, like proud parent. So sorry for this micro pausa, but this was crazy. Like we were watching a photo of the International Space Station in space, and he had told me like, what happens if somebody screams in space? And I was like, first of all, I was like, holy shit, like that's a great question. Like he's fucking 3 years old, man. I was like, damn. And I told him, no, listen, there is no space, there is no sound in space because there's no air. And man, his answer was like, no, but I can do this. Ah! I was like, shit, man, like, what you thinking about? So anyway, sorry. What your mama feeding you? So anyways, so assuming, let's say that you're playing back the sound of a bass instrument that is completely consistent in its low frequency levels, what you're going to hear will still dance around, and it would be not in consonance with the rest of the audio that the speaker is reproducing. Because basically, you as a speaker designer can control a lot what the driver is doing, but you can't control a lot what the port is doing, what the hole is doing. That's kind of exactly what I mean there. So check this out, by the way. I prepared this little slide here to kind of like tease us. The Mike Senior, the author, is telling us something like, bear in mind that the lowest fundamental from a bass guitar is around what frequency do you think is?
What is bear in mind?
I'm asking you a question, like, take into consideration.
Like 1,000 or below.
1,000, you said 1,000.
Or no,
The fundamental, the question here, I'm asking you three questions here. The first question is, where can you find the fundamental note, the fundamental frequency of a bass guitar? Where it can be?
500 and 1,000, I think.
It can be, but where do you think can be the lowest one?
The 60 or 50?
Okay, cool. No, you got it right, like 44
The
hertz.
lowest one.
Yeah, the lowest one. Yeah, you're right, Dima. Like I just maybe didn't express the
Just
idea.
common misconception that the bass guitar is like very low, but
You're right.
The main information is a lot higher. Than
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So, and the other side, pianos and organs are some of the sources can be around, let's see the hertz, like around what hertz do you think the fundamental notes could be?
80.
20 to 40, yeah, I mean as well. So there is a lot of information happening in between 20 and 40 hertz. And that's something that I realized when I used to sniff, crying, have barefoots. You know, when I used to have barefoots and I was like, holy shit, like that's how 20 hertz sound, like that's incredible. So now, like in contrast to the fundamental, the first harmonic of this, so we discussed the fundamental. It's like those instruments have fundamentals around 40 hertz. Now, the first harmonic of those instruments are usually above 50 hertz. So there is a lot of stuff happening in between 40, 50, 60, 70 hertz, something like that. So this is a really important area of the spectrum. So now, if you're trying to compare a kick of some reference mix that you're listening to that has loads of energy around 30, and your comparison track is around 50 hertz, because the speaker is effectively working like under not in such control around 30 hertz, then you're gonna end up most likely making your kick too loud in comparison with your reference. I mean, what this is trying to tell us is like, hey, under 50 ported speakers are not really so capable of balancing the relationship between frequencies on the whole spectrum. And so your mix that you're listening as a reference was not created in a ported speaker, most likely. And you are mixing in a ported speaker, and you are kind of like maybe overcompensating for the low end because your speaker is really not resolving it very well. So the loss of the low end on an unported monitor is a problem because, I mean, when you monitor with non-perforated monitors, you also are going to get a problem, but it's easier kind of to compensate because the speaker designer has more control over that factor. Basically, open a hole in a speaker, it's something that gives to the speaker designer a lot of, it removes capacity from the speaker designer to control the low end. That's exactly what I want to say. And so, and most mixes that you have heard were not made in a ported speaker, and so this is going to create this kind of like differences between what you're hearing and what you want to hear. Frequency response graph, this is really important, that's why I put it in red. Like frequency response graphs only show how the speaker responds to one frequency constantly playing. It's really shitty. It's really, you get the point? It's like 1,000 hertz played constantly. And come on, like songs are not like that, you know, at all. And so the test signal is nothing like a varied or fast moving waveform or something like that. It's just like a test signal. And this creates a problem. This is really important, and we will consider this in a minute. So other problems with perforated speakers. So porting damages or limits the monitor's ability to, I mean, basically the decays that are generated when I stop a signal, you know, when I have a ported speaker, the decays are not consistent. So things that are lower end in nature, the speaker actually stops resonating because of the hole that it has, a bit slower than if it's sounding in a higher if the speaker is trying to reproduce a higher frequency. So the porting or opening a holes to the speaker damages the ability of the monitor to produce consistent decays. That's really important, because maybe your kick stops sounding in real life, but your speaker is still vibrating to it, and you think that the kick is longer than when it really is. And when kick 1 is sounding, it has not yet ended sounding, and kick 2 starts. You see the point of what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So that's super brutal. I have never thought about anything of this, because I have never really paid attention to this until I made this presentation, because I'm not so geek about audio gear. And actually, this blew my mind, what I just told you. I was like, fuck. So the hole that you open in the speaker causes spectral energy at a certain resonance frequency to resonate for a short time. And this generates a flattering low frequency level boost for a particular noise test signal. But the same quality also adds short resonant tails. So I mean, basically this is complementing what I put above here. It's like one of the biggest problems of perforated speakers is that they don't produce consistent decays. So this is kind of like all going around that. Sounds that stop abruptly suffer a similar problem with the port ringing on after they finish. That's crazy, man, that's crazy. I never thought about this. This really disguises the true decay attributes of the sound itself. And so it can be hard to judge the character of something that is of short duration. So another possible problem with ported speakers is that the ringing of the port, the ringing of the hole actually, can dominate over the real fundamental frequencies of the low bass note. So this makes them difficult to distinguish from each other.
So actually the ported speakers are like bass boosted headphones?
Yeah, exactly. They're like bass boosted headphones.
And there is no like hi-fi and professional industry monitors which are ported, yeah?
Yeah, no, because of that. Because it's kind of like a wild horse or something that you can't control. The author recommends, like, hey, I recommend you to listen this song Infidelity only on you. I don't remember what's the name. I had never heard this song before, and actually it's quite cool. I didn't know this band at all, and I mean it's just a reference track that the author uses, that Mike Senior uses, and it just goes like, well, the meandering bass line quickly becomes murky and ill-defined. I mean, basically he knows this track very much. And he says, if we hear it in ported speakers, maybe you will feel it. I wanted us to have this lecture in the 407 room, so we can hear it there, because there are ported speakers there. But anyways, we're not there together, so I'm not going to listen to this right now. Now, we're going to enter to the topic of this waterfall diagrams, sorry, which is fascinating. I really didn't understand this until I made this presentation. So now the author is asking a question like, if only the issues brought about by perforating speakers could be compensated mentally, I mean, what it means by that sentence is like, wouldn't it be nice if we could mentally compensate for the effect of the hole? The porting resonance frequencies are many, and it's difficult to stop the thing resonating at a whole range of higher frequencies too, which leads to unpredictable time smearing or unpredictable artifacts, let's put it like this, right across the frequency spectrum. So it's not just bass instruments that you may be unable to judge, it's really everything else too. So it seems like perforated speakers are really problematic according to this guy. Basically what I said here, that I'm a bit tired, so sorry if I'm not so articulated today. What it says here basically is something kind of like, hey, opening a hole in a speaker will not only offer you problems in the low end, because that resonance of that hole, it's also unpredictable in other areas of the spectrum too. So maybe you're not judging everything else well. And also, we already discussed that simple frequency response graph. The reason that really doesn't tell us like everything that we need to know, because it only shows us like frequency and level. Now, if you really want to understand the side effects of a resonance of a speaker, you need to have a third dimension, which is time. Because usually the frequency response shows you like frequency and just decibel. But what if we add time to that equation? So it's like in time 0, what was the energy? In time 0.1, what was the energy at all the frequencies? In time 0.2, what was the energy? So that is what is called a waterfall plot. It's what Dima showed, and I'm going to talk about it for a couple of minutes. So there's a type of graph that does exactly that. It shows spectral decay. So it's like, okay, I'll show you the spectrum in second 1, I'll show you the spectrum in second 2, 3, 4, and 5, and see what frequencies remain. So this is kind of how they look. And you see, now that we know this, you see you have time 0, time 0.60. These are, I guess, microseconds. 120, 100, 240. So at the initial, this is the frequency response at the moment 0, right? And then it just starts decaying, and then you can see here that the frequencies around 50 hertz, they decay slower. You know, this is another example. To be honest, I don't understand this second example, but I thought I saw it and I was like, whoa, that's awesome. But I really like this one. And I put you here an article, just if you want to research more about waterfall diagrams. And actually, those guys have like some software that you can use to measure like rooms and stuff, so it can be interesting to see.
I think the second one is just like turned 90 degrees.
Yeah, I guess. I guess so. Like, and then you have
not 90, but yeah, it's
like
more 3D.
Yeah. I was just like really tripping this graph, and I was like, whoa. But anyways, this one I understand it very well. So waterfall diagrams show the energy distribution in milliseconds after the source completed its attack. Sorry, I just have a typo there. Phase. So that's pretty cool. Andrew, did you got it? These diagrams. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So this is just another beautiful one that I found, and I thought it was really cool, so I just wanted to put it here. Now, check this out. This is a speaker. So we need to choose if this speaker is ported or not. So do you think it's ported?
Yeah.
So you think it's ported. Now, let's try to remember how to read this. So this is 30 decibels. This is like 20 hertz here. So this means that the sound was emitted, it stopped sounding, and then the decay lasted here like some sort of like, I don't know how many microseconds here, like 20 microseconds, and then some frequencies remain there. This, what I'm going to show you now, guys, is going to blow your mind, I promise you. So this is a
For me, why I say this is ported, because it's too much low frequency for unported.
Yeah, you're right. This is non-ported, it's a reference, and not cheap. So this is an ATC, SMC. This is a good example. Like, this is a really good example. Now look at this. Do you think this one is ported or not?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, this is ported, but it's not cheap. I mean, it's a good ported speaker. So you see, like, what's happening is that around 100 hertz, this is really remarkable, right? And now we know how to read this. It's like, okay, the audio signal went away, but the low end kept going there. So imagine if you have a kick, imagine that you're mixing black metal, really, and you have this, you know, these kicks that are like a machine gun. When the second kick is starting, the first one hasn't ended, and you end up with a soup of kick there that you don't understand what the hell is going on. This is a ported speaker, but not cheap. Now, this is also a ported speaker, but also not cheap. It's a Westlake, it's a good one. Now, you see, this is a ported speaker, cheap. And look at that. You see, like, imagine this thing. I mean, for fast repeating sounds, it's really brutal. I mean, and it's really difficult. It's going to be really difficult to differentiate them from one another. And this is the same. This is a ported speaker, and it's a cheap one. And I mean, this is a very bad speaker, I guess. Like, I don't know this speaker in particular. And this is another option that is a little bit better. But yeah, now we know how to read this diagram, and it's really important. It's like, I mean, you want to see something like this, right? That is just like very fast decay, and this is non-ported, actually. Sorry. But this is ported and expensive, so all ported speakers are going to have that limitation, basically. And one of the reasons is because it takes time for air to get out of the speaker. That's really interesting. And that time, I read it around after I finished the presentation, and that time is it's slower than the speed of sound. So that's one of the reasons why it happens. So okay, that's pretty cool. I mean, so this is a couple of examples. Like this is the Auraton 5C. We just saw it in the Joe Barresi studio that I showed you. No, it was not in the Joe Barresi studio. It's in another one. This is a very famous speaker, and look at that. I mean, look at the decay diagram for it. And this is a Yamaha NX10, which is a great. It's also not ported, and it's a great diagram there. So the less well-controlled a monitor's resonance is, the less easily you can mix with it. Ports can also produce turbulence noise, which obscures other parts of your mix, compression artifacts, which mess with the apparent level of bass instruments, and also distortion, which can mislead you to guide you wrongly to make the mid-range, and so it can make things be more audible in the mix than they really are. It's actually just the speaker resonating at a certain frequency. So in your home, when you want to, if you ever want to test this, I put you here. This is part of the whole. I mean, this guy really made a huge program, and we're gonna use it a lot. I mean, I'm talking. All of this is Jason Corey's. Like this guy, it's a monster, really. So there are some sine tones, and he's recommended us to listen those sine tones, and we want to listen the lower frequency. So you can try to. You will hear if you're in a bad speaker, maybe that you will start hearing the resonance of the actual port. And in where you should be hearing a pure tone, maybe you end up hearing something that sounds a little bit like a synth, and that's not something that you want. So this guy proposes, he says like, hey, if you're gonna spare £1,000, like I told you before, better buy some unported speakers. And he proposes these ones. I have never heard them before because I don't know about gear so much. So NHT Pro M00 and S00, and he proposes also Blue Sky Media Desk and Pro Desk system. So if you're ever gonna buy speakers, maybe you can come back to these slides and remember that, or whatever, make a note. So now, yes, you mentioned speaker stands and mounting hardware, and it's really important. And definitely, you know, if the speaker is placed in, I mean, many engineers and people who are starting their business, they blew up a lot of money by having great speakers and bad mounts. So that's a really big problem. And so this really results in monitoring that it doesn't reflect the true nature of the speakers. Speaker cabinets should be as firmly fixed as possible, because if they move, it should be in sympathy with the excursions. I mean, the speaker kind of want to move with the movement of the driver, and so this can under or over represent the low end. You should use dedicated speaker stands, and you can easily build ones. And I will show you how now. I will show you a video, and we're gonna skip it quickly so you can see how they're built. Ilya and I myself together, we build the speaker stands in DTH in Studio B, and it's really not hard. And you want the mounting hardware or the stand to present as much inertia as possible. Another error there. Sorry for that.
What is inertia?
Inertia is like, for example, when I'm moving my car forwards,
inertia.
Inertia. Yeah. So you want the speaker mount to offer as much inertia as possible. So this is a guy who built a speaker mount.
So in this,
I'm not gonna play the audio because we can just keep it. Like, I mean, basically what you need is to. Oh, sorry, I cannot do it like that. Wait. I'm gonna go out to YouTube here and just skip a little bit like this. You see, like, you get some planks of wood. Ilya and I did a different design, but this is really cool. If I would do it again, I would do this design instead. So you glue them all really with industrial wood. Then you also like close them with nails, and then you will see there is a fishka there that is really cool. That maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but now I showed you, and now you know. So yeah, you just do it very carefully. You make sure that they're the same height and all of that. You make the base for it. And you place them on the base, you like glue them and also attach them with nails. And here comes the main ingredient of the whole thing. You're gonna put sand inside, and that's really, really important. And so you just fill this whole thing up with sand. He's placing the whole thing there, and also attaching it with screws. And then he isolated, and then he's gonna measure, make sure that it all goes well. And yeah, and here comes the moment when he adds the sand. So then you fill them up with sand. I remember we used 300 kilograms of sand. It was some ridiculous thing. It was really over the top. Like, we didn't need it so much, but that's how Ilya is. Ilya was the one directing this, so okay. And then, well, he closes the whole thing, and voila, he paints it, makes them really cool. And then he finds, this is really important, really, really important. And then he finds this material, which is a rubber-based material, so the speaker aren't really actually not dancing so much. And that's kind of it. That's how you build speaker mounts, and it's really cool, fun, like weekend project that is totally accessible to all of us. And you don't need to go and buy them, like you can build them yourself. So about speaker positioning, yeah, you should do whatever you can to try to aim speakers directly at the listening position. I'm gonna tell you something as well that blew my mind, that I hope is useful to you as well, and and you mentioned something about it, but you didn't mention something that I researched recently that really shocked me. So, firstly, well, high frequencies are really directional. So if the speaker, that's one of the reasons why you want the speakers to really be looking into your ears. Because if the high frequency content is not directly looking into your ears, you're going to lose it a lot. So that's kind of like about the vertical position of your ears versus the speakers. Now, let me show you something. Do you see my screen? 1 second.
Yeah.
So imagine that this is the speaker. This thing of Sikoria here is like the speaker. And let's say that the tweeter is up here, and the woofer is up here. So you want your ear to be parallel to it. That's clear. Let me read something here before I tell you the mind-blowing thing. A speaker frequency response, it makes an on-axis, so directly in front of it. So if you listen off-axis, so let's say this is the speaker and my ears are here, you won't be hearing what the designer wanted you to hear. So high frequencies are more directional than low frequencies, so high-end details will disappear. But aiming the speakers, you see, it's not only about this horizontal plane, it's also about, this is really crazy, man. I didn't thought about this at all, and it's going to be really cool what I'm going to tell you now. Like, positioning the speaker is not only about that relationship between your ear and the speaker, it's also about the angle of attack of the speaker, and I'm going to tell you why. It's really crazy why. So, most near-field monitors, they have a tweeter. They have, like, the tweeter creates something that is called a wave guide, which is like kind of like the field where the high end is perceived clearly. This is designed to horizontally disperse like a lot of high frequencies, a jet of high frequencies, and they have a sweet spot or an optimum listen area. So one of the reasons why you want to also take into consideration the vertical plane is because, for example, if you angle it like this, but your head ends up being above them, you're missing part of the high-end content. Yeah? You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, speakers shoot off like a jet of high frequencies, and if they are angled like this jet looks like a laser, and if this is my head and the speaker is angled a little bit down, I'm going to be missing parts of that energy beam that is being sent to me. And now check this out. The second part is the one that blew my mind away. Most near-field monitors have more than one driver in them. So each driver has a different vertical position. So imagine, if you have a speaker like this, the subwoofer is down here, right? You see my hand.
Mm-hmm.
And the tweeter is up here.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew, are you there? Because this part is going to be mind-blowing.
Yes.
So if the speaker, imagine, is angled like this or like this, let's imagine that it's angled like this. It happens more often. Then it means that the distance between the tweeter and the subwoofer is not the same. Mm-hmm. And so the tweeter will send something and the subwoofer will send something, and what will arrive to your ears will be out of phase.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. If the distance from each driver to the listening position isn't the same, then the signals from the different drivers will arrive at the listening position at different times, out of phase. And this can make frequency cancellation. So manufacturers...
I have a question. But what if you put your speaker on your side and then you can adjust the angle? So
Well, I mean, you have to think about this. Like putting it on the side and angulating it, it also means that the tweeter can end up being closer to you than the subwoofer. You see, than the woofer.
Yeah.
You just have to kind of like compensate for that. And you see, after I did that, and after I read that, and I thought, and I was thinking, when I saw Joe Barrisi's studio, you see, everything is horizontal, like the speakers are not angled, and that really called my attention when I saw it. And actually, look at that little radio cassette there on the back. You see.
Yeah.
Like I mean, all of the speakers are not angled, and made me think a lot about the way the speakers are put in DTH. By the way, so anyways, so look, most affordable near-field monitors have two drivers, which means that the filtering happens in between the high frequencies and the low frequencies. So you end up getting cancellations in the middle of the spectrum. So he kind of like puts a pink noise. I wanted us to hear this in the studio, but maybe, or in here, but maybe you can hear it at home. He sends like a pink noise, so you can feel the directionality of the high end of the speaker, so you can move your ear a little bit around and just try to catch the high frequencies and see how they change. Speakers have to be set up so the distance between the speakers equals the distance from each of the speakers in the listening position. So this is about stereo image. Like the speakers have to be set up in a way that left speaker and right speaker. Wait. Have to set up so the distance between the speakers equals the distance. Sorry. So sorry. There is a question here, which is the following: when you put the two speakers, you need to make a equilateral triangle. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the base of the triangle needs to be the same of the size. Da. And the question is why? And well, I'm going to answer this because I'm moving a bit faster. It's because the human brain has evolved to perceive the source of an incoming sound as being located in the same side as the ear that the sound that it reaches first. So, I mean, if you, let's say that you have one speaker a bit closer to you than the other, then it means that you will always hear things tilted towards the right in your panning, and you're going to think that everything is panned towards the right. But it's because you have this instinct of thinking, if it arrived to my right ear first, then it means that it must be on the right. And that's why you need to make this equilateral triangle between you and the speakers to make sure that everything, and like Andrew has said, this thing has to be in the position, I think, yeah, in the position of the head, you know, and actually you see it, you should imagine that the end of that triangle ends behind you. So it should be kind of like, I mean, doesn't matter what distance you're going to put, but it should be the same distance between all of those points. So let me see. And obviously, I mean, the phase between both speakers, I think you both mentioned this, the phase between both speakers is a super important thing. The speaker on the right and the speaker on the left should have the same polarity. Obviously, I mean, I'm not going to explain this. This is super obvious and we understand what it means and we know that they have to be in phase. This guy developed for us a file. It's really cool. Like, imagine, like, there are 3 files. So there are, wait, let me switch off the Telegram sound there. That is stressing me a bit. So this guy made a set of files. So there are 4 audio files. Like the first one, you hear some burst on the left channel. The second one, you hear only on the right channel. The third one, you hear on both. And the fourth is designed to have the sound in between the left and the right speaker out of phase. So it means that if you hear well the fourth sound, it means that your speakers are out of phase. You see? Mm-hmm. So I invite you to test this in your home system. You know, you just need to open this and you have it stereo test. You see, like it's something kind of like that.
Please send the link in the chat.
Yeah, sure. Let me just copy link address and I'll send it to you on Telega right away. Wait, let me just go like BSC G3.
Can you please repeat the point of this?
Just a second.
File?
Test stereo. I'll tell you in a second. Test stereo. Just cannot see. Test stereo. Test stereo for your speakers. Well, I'm so tired that I'm writing gibberish, but you get the point. And I'll send it to you as well. So imagine this file has this audio file has 4 points. You know, the first one shows you a bit of noise on the left. The other one shows you a bit of noise on the right. The other one shows you noise on the left and right at the same time that is in phase. And the fourth file, the fourth little like sound, it's purposefully right and left speaker are gonna play something that are out of phase. So it means that if you hear it well, it means that your speakers are out of phase.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So conclusions: near field monitor system is very good for mixing. Whatever speakers to use, mount them in somewhere solid. Well, of course, be scared, be alert of perforated designs. Maybe better to choose active over passive, and accuracy over volume. Use a good mount. You can build them. It's better that the speaker is parallel to you and that it has no angle in the vertical plane. For stereo listening, obviously everything should be at the same distance, the triangle that we discussed. And well, obviously, I mean, I didn't touch acoustic treatment on purpose because you will have a lecture with Sergei Praskuryakov about audio acoustics, so I just left it untouched. And so obviously you need to do some acoustic treatment from your room, and that would be awesome if you do it. So wow, we did it. Like, we did it exactly. It's like 4:33. So we did an amazing lecture. I really like this format. I think I'm going to use it a lot because, I mean, it puts you to work, and it also makes me learn and makes you learn, and maybe it's cool if we sometimes do these theoretical lectures like this. So what's going to happen next is that next week we are going to have a little bit of a theoretical moment, entering into the book of Mike Senior and mixing, but we're going to start this project of like a major editing project. So this is going to be challenging because you both use Ableton, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to have to learn a lot on how to do this. And I don't know, Andriuha, for example, do you guys have Ableton in your computers?
Yeah.
You mean in the school or?
No, in your laptops.
Yeah, sure.
In your laptops. I mean, because I know that Andrei told me that if a lecture, because I mean, what's happening with Andriuha is that, tell me if I'm wrong, Andrei, but we are all a family and we take care of you. Wait, let me just stop this 1 second because we don't need to stream it.